This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream. For most of the 21st century, Germany has been perhaps the most dominant economy in Europe. At a little over $50,000, it has the highest GDP per capita of any large European country, and its growth rates have regularly exceeded that of its neighbours. Today, Germany is the fourth largest economy in the world, and the world's third largest exporter. Foreign politicians, especially in the UK, are obsessed with Germany, and for a while it seemed that Germany was the answer to every economic or political issue facing a country. In 2020, there was even a best-selling book published in the UK titled Why Germans Do It Better: Notes from a Grown-Up Country. However, in the last few years, things have changed. In 2019, German growth was already lagging behind the rest of the euro area, and Germany has barely returned to pre-pandemic levels of GDP. So, in this video, we're going to try our best to figure out why the German economy is struggling, how worried we should be, and what might be done to fix it. Now, before we get into it, we should say here that none of us at TLDR are actual economists. So this video is in no sense intended as an exhaustive explanation as to what's happened to the German economy. We're bound to miss out some of the economic factors that will have affected Germany's recent economic slowdown. And if you think there are any glaring omissions, let us know in the comments. Anyway, as we see it, two of the most important factors behind Germany's recent slowdown are, one, its reliance on export markets, and especially China, and two, its disproportionate reliance on Russian gas for much of its industry. Let's start with its reliance on exports. Today, Germany is known for being one of the few large developed countries to run a current account surplus, i.e. exports more stuff than it imports. For the past 15 years or so, Germany has run a current account surplus, averaging about 7% of GDP, while other similar economies have mostly run deficits ranging between 1 and 4% of GDP. This is in part because Germany has a really impressive manufacturing industry. The obvious example here is cars. Germany has a number of internationally renowned car brands, including Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, BMW and Porsche, and these are all sold around the world. Somewhat unsurprisingly, cars are Germany's top export, representing nearly 10% of all exports in 2020. So, you get the idea. Germany has lots of stuff, including cars, to sell to the world, which is why it exports more than it imports. Other countries, like say the UK, don't have as much stuff to sell to the world, which is why we run a current account deficit. Now, we should say that this hasn't always been the case. For most of the 90s and even the early 2000s, Germany has actually run a current account deficit. But this all changed with the introduction of the euro in 1999 and the Hartz-Labour reforms in the early 2000s, both of which probably made German exports more competitive. Obviously, this has its advantages, but it also means that the German economy relies on the rest of the world to keep it going. For example, most of Germany's exports go to either China, the US, or the EU. When these economies are booming, this is great news for Germany. It gets to sell loads of stuff, including loads of cars to American, Chinese, and European consumers. However, when, say, Trump slaps tariffs on German exports, as he did in 2019, or China's economy is locked down due to zero COVID, as it was until very recently, then Germany's economy is disproportionately affected. And this is sort of what's happened recently. While German exports to the US are still pretty strong, China's economic slowdown and rampant inflation in the EU, which has reduced consumer demand for stuff like German cars, then this hurts Germany's exports. In fact, in May, Germany actually imported $1 billion more worth of stuff than it exported, the largest monthly trade deficit since 1991. Anyway, on to the second thing hurting Germany's economy, its reliance on Russian energy, and specifically Russian gas. A lot of German industry is pretty energy intensive, requiring significant amounts of oil, gas, and even coal, and a lot of this used to come from Russia. Before the war, oil accounted for 32% of Germany's total energy consumption, and 33% of that came from Russia. Gas accounted for 27%, and 55% of that came from Russia. Coal accounted for 18%, and 26% of that came from Russia. All in all, this means that 30% of the energy consumed in Germany came from Russia. This makes Germany more dependent on Russian energy imports than any other large European economy, which is why the German economy has been particularly affected by the recent embargoes on European imports of Russian hydrocarbons, especially gas. So that's why the German economy is struggling. On to the last part of this video. Where does the German economy go from here? Well, when it comes to Germany's export market, a lot of this will depend on Germany's two largest export markets, America and China. In the last few years or so, America has become increasingly protectionist, and successful American administrations have taken active steps to nurture America's domestic industry. Trump basically started a trade war with the EU, and while Biden mostly reversed the tariffs last year, he's made it clear that he wants to prioritize American companies over European ones. The Inflation Reduction Act, for example, provides a $7,500 consumer tax credit for cars made in North America, which will make it hard for German car companies to compete. If this protectionist trend continues, as looks likely, German exports will suffer. When it comes to China, it'll depend on what stance the EU as a whole ends up taking towards China. Germany is clearly angling for a more trade-friendly stance with China, as demonstrated by Scholz's recent trip to Beijing, but other European countries and the US want the EU to take a more aggressive stance. As to whether the German economy can wean itself off Russian energy imports, here there are reasons for optimism. A study from late November found that German industry's gas consumption is down nearly 20%, and 75% of German companies say they've been able to reduce energy consumption without reducing output. All in all, while the current challenges facing the German economy aren't necessarily fatal, it might be time for Scholz & Co. to start at least considering a move away from the export-driven model that's proved so successful over the last 15 years or so. If Scholz is looking for financial advice, though, he can save some money by signing up to Nebula right now during our wild sale. You've heard me tell you about Nebula before, but there's a big sale on right now, so if you've ever considered signing up, now's the time. Essentially though, Nebula is the streaming service we built with a bunch of your other favourite creators. Over there, we've posted a bunch of exclusive full-length TLDR videos which will never come to YouTube, but you'll also find a load of our normal videos early and ad-free there too. As I said, it's not just us either, there's tons of other amazing creators too, which makes it astonishing you can get all of this exclusive and ad-free content for less than $1 a month. Normally, people sell you things as being less than a cup of coffee. This is less than a bottle of water, and a fraction of what other streaming services are charging. Services which don't directly support independent creators. This crazy good offer is only available right now, and it's only possible through our Nebula Curiosity Stream bundle. Essentially, if you sign up to Curiosity Stream for the crazy low price of $11.59 a year, then you get free access to Nebula as long as you're a member. That's right, 2 platforms for less than $1 a month. And Curiosity Stream is awesome. It contains absolutely boatloads of high-quality documentaries on all kinds of topics I know TLDR viewers will love. So if you want both for less than $1 a month, then the link's down below. And if you've ever considered signing up to support TLDR, now's the cheapest time to do so. So, thank you.